This is an interesting article by vice.com. Check them out. A great website. Uber and Lyft can't find drivers because gig work sucks. What a title. Drivers told Motherboard they never coming back because of horrific working conditions before and during the pandemic. Now, I've reported on those horrific working conditions throughout the pandemic. A couple of markets are maybe doing well. You know, I know that LA is doing well. Vegas is doing well. The drivers are making money. But for the majority of the cities, gig work really does suck, right? And they're not able to step it up. They tripling their rates for riders. And unfortunately, this money ain't trickling down to you. So let's jump straight in here. It's a great article. They say you may have noticed recently that an Uber ride is more expensive than it used to be as ride-hail companies Uber and Lyft hike prices to record heights during the COVID-19 pandemic. Much commentary has settled on explaining this as consequence of a labor shortage, largely motivated by a lack of proper financial incentives. I think that's pretty much the truth, right? They're largely motivated by a lack of proper financial incentives, right? Drivers, the story goes, saw the new cash bonuses offered by companies to lure workers back as insufficient. I call them bait and switch. I made one video that got over 60,000 views on that particular topic. Some perhaps decided they were not worth the risk of getting infected with COVID-19 or one of its budding variants, while other analysis suggested drivers were content with living on stimulus funds rather than money from driving. At the same time, the firms began curtailing subsidies that kept prices low enough to attract riders and work towards monopoly. Together, this has left us with a sudden and massive spike in ride-hail prices. Gridwise, a ride-hail driver assistance app, estimated that Uber has increased its prices by 79% since the second quarter of 2019. Are the riders happy with that? Definitely not. Are the drivers getting anything of that 79? Very, very little. Uber, Lyft, wake up. Listen. While Uber and Lyft are reportedly thinking about offering new perks such as education, career, and expense programs, analysts admit these don't strike at core problems with gig economy that were driving workers away before COVID-19 hit and are making it difficult to attract them now. I made a video 2 weeks about this. Come on, guys. You're offering this education and career programs where you're actually forcing the driver to do, like, a little bit of sarcasm, 600 hours a week to keep them in the hamster wheel. We ain't falling for that crap. So here they report on that. In conversations with Motherboard, former and current ride-hail drivers pointed to a major factor for not returning. How horrible is it to work for Uber and Lyft? For some workers, this realization came long before the pandemic reared its head, and for others, the crisis hammered it home. Motherboard has changed some drivers' names or granted them anonymity out of fear of retaliation. You know, you got to do that with Uber, unfortunately, because they will retaliate and they will terminate you if you speak negatively against them, right? So if I kept driving, something was going to break, said Maurice, a former driver in New York who spent 4 years working for Uber and Lyft before the pandemic. I already go nights without eating or sleeping. My back hurts, my joints hurt, my neck hurt. I felt like a donkey, like a slave driving all the time. For Maurice, the early months of the pandemic were the worst since Uber and Lyft first introduced their quota system in 2019. At that time, in response to regulations passed by New York City, that introduced a vehicle license cap, wage floor, and required companies to reduce the time spent by drivers without passengers, Uber and Lyft began a lockout. While lockouts are usually a type of work stoppage carried out by employers to force employees to agree to outrageous concessions, the lockout here was used to effectively fire tens of thousands of drivers who were now being paid a livable wage. Stuff like the lockout is why I left, said Curtis, a former driver who left a few months after the quotes were introduced. Sometimes I made less than when I was working half the hours before, all that because I wouldn't make enough trips. So I would get scheduled for shitty hours and get even less trips. I felt trapped. like I couldn't leave until my family snapped me out of it. I was looking like shit, felt like shit, but I had just put that aside and kept working. Yeah, that's the sad part, is that once you get sort of sucked into that vacuum cleaner, into that hamster wheel, sometimes you don't even realize how they are abusing and how they're manipulating you. It sometimes takes someone else, like myself, to tell you, hey, wake up, buddy. Look at what's going on, right? They are draining you. And at that moment, you got to stop. Just listen to me for a second, right? Let's listen to what Rideshare Professor tells you here. Stop for a second. Take a day off. Think about your future. Think about where you are. Think about what they've been doing to you in the past, right? Is it worth it? Are you making money? Some drivers, I'm telling you right now, temporarily, mark my words, temporarily are making money. So go milk those cows while you can. But it's short term, folks. Some people get way too excited and say, well, I'm making good money right now. Just wait. Just wait. If you have been with Uber long and Lyft long enough, you will know that you get bitten many a times. There might be those few little sweet moments, right? But on the long run, just trust me on this. It's not making the big money. You got to transition to the higher echelons, to the higher categories, and you got to make sure you get your livery, your limo license, so that you put 100% in your pocket. One concern drivers had early in the pandemic was that ride-hail companies were unable or unwilling to keep them safe from infection or provide for them if they did get infected. In March, Uber rolled out a paid sick leave policy that became a perpetually moving goal post as its exclusionary guidelines changed so often that by April, only 14 drivers had been paid paltry sums. Exactly, right? They just don't want to pay out. I've been driving for 6 years. Uber has taken at least £10,000 in commissions from me each year. They take 20% of my earnings, then offer me £200. Romana Pryor, London-based Uber driver, told Motherboard at the time. I don't understand how they can take 60,000 from me, then offer nothing when I'm in need. How can I provide for my partner and 2 kids with this? My employer has let me down. Truth. Maurice said that he felt similarly abandoned by the gig companies he worked for as the COVID-19 pandemic took hold. Every day I was telling myself I shouldn't drive, especially when people started dying, he said. I hated it, but what could I do? Even when the government programs began, I felt like I couldn't leave for some reason, but it was obvious they wouldn't protect us. That's when I quit. On top of the ride-hailing firms' resistance to sick pay and paid sick leave programs, Maurice pointed to bumbling attempts by Uber and Lyft to provide PPE that took too long. I didn't see it coming. Some people got it right at the end when it was too late. Were inadequate or seemed poorly thought out. At one point, Uber closed its green light hubs, the main place drivers could get hand sanitizer or guidance, then later announced 40% of them were permanently staying closed. Clear signs they are in trouble. Maurice is far from the only driver to have made a similar calculation during the pandemic. In its May earnings report, Uber said it had 3.5 million active drivers and couriers in the first quarter of the year, down 22% from the previous year. Other drivers were turned off by gig companies, ever-shifting pricing experiments, and how they affect workers. In California, the Washington Post looked at how Uber and Lyft made a long series of changes to drivers' pay structure since the passage of Prop 22, a ballot initiative written by gig companies to preserve the misclassification of their workforces. And during the pandemic, the Post found that in recent months, the companies, Uber in particular, were keeping the lion's share of fare hikes for themselves as part of a long-developing uncoupling of driver pay for passenger fares. And they took the multiplier away, and they would not reveal the destination filter. They took that all away from you drivers in California. I woke up every day asking how long I could keep it up. I just didn't feel like a person. Yona, who worked for Lyft in California for the past 6 years until the pandemic, told Motherboard, I got 2 kids, my mother, my sister. I couldn't see them. I was doing all this for them, but I could barely support them, barely supported myself. Honestly, Yona, I'm asking you, do you think that John Zimmer or Logan Green or Dara Khosrowshahi care a shit that you have kids? They don't care. What they care about is how much they can extract from Yona. Yona's sister Destiny started driving in her stead just in time to enjoy some of the changes Uber and Lyft rolled out in California to rally support for Prop 22. She said, for example, ride-hail companies began to allow drivers to set their own prices and preview destinations. Her sister also got to watch as Prop 22 passed. Those new changes were rolled back and pay rates began to slip. I was making even less than my sister, and I was probably less safe too, Destiny told Motherboard. She got out back in the spring. I hopped on and I was coming back negative some days. I tried Uber Eats and DoorDash to see if that was any better, but stopped after a friend was almost robbed on a delivery. Okay, so the options are get COVID or get robbed. Then I guess what? I'm doing none of them. Smart move, Destiny. Drivers like Yona, her sister Destiny, Curtis, and Maurice, who drove in California and New York, the largest markets for Uber and Lyft, are often most directly exposed to the gig economy's predations and various experiments. Ultimately, many drivers are refusing to join the platform for the same reasons that drivers left the platform. It's demeaning, dehumanizing work that doesn't pay well for the vast majority of drivers who then go on to quit. Earlier, sorry, let me just go back to that there. Earlier this spring, as vaccines rolled out and people started moving again, we began to see the demand for rides outpace the number of available drivers. Lyft said in a statement, we added thousands of drivers in the past few weeks, and it's already leading to a better rider experience with wait times down more than 15% nationwide. I'm sorry, Uber and Lyft, but that's not what the media is reporting. That's not what drivers are reporting. We've added thousands of drivers in the past few weeks, and it's already leading to a better rider experience with wait times down more than 15% nationwide and down 35% in some major markets. I personally don't believe that. I get direct feedback from a lot of these riders that are switching over to me and taking private trips with me, and still the same old crap that they're not going to put up with. So I'm smiling all the way to the bank, and I'm getting their clients. It's lovely. For drivers, it continues to be a great time to drive, with drivers in top markets earning significantly more than they were pre-pandemic. That's what I said in the very beginning of the video. Uber did not respond to Motherboard's request for comment, of course, because they're humiliated. They can't counter this. They can't counter the truth, right? I've been with them for 5 years and I'm not coming back, said Mahad, a former driver base in Washington, D.C. All the drivers I know either stopped and don't plan on coming back, stopped and are waiting for things to really change before they come back, or asking every moment why they're still driving. It's not just the money. I'd say money and safety. Money, safety, money, safety. If they address those, maybe drivers will come back. The degrading working conditions, however, as well as the poor pay, are structurally necessary for ride-hailing companies. They were necessary to attract and retain customers with artificially low prices, to burn through drivers at high rates and frustrate labor organizing and bolster the narrative of gig work as temporary, transient, and convenient. It's no wonder then that drivers aren't coming back. So true. You'll never see me drive again. Never, Yona told Motherboard. I need the money, but what good is that if I'm dead? Even if the job doesn't kill me now, it will later. People aren't made to work like that all day, all night, no real contact with other people besides customers and some stupid program. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, there we go. Now, huge shout out, massive shout out. Love these guys at Legal Rideshare. Brian Greening is such a stand-up guy. They're represented in all 50 states. If you do get into an accident, if you or your riders have been injured, don't hesitate, don't wait. Contact them right away, legalrideshare.com. They also offer a phenomenal program if you get deactivated, legalrideshare.com/deactivation, right? Check that out. But most importantly, folks, is that you get the right info, right? You don't want to lose out on a large settlement if you got injured. If you are unhappy with your current law firm, make 100% sure you contact this guy, Brian Greening at Legal Rideshare. I tell you what, the gentleman cares about the drivers, all drivers. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Legal Rideshare. And folks, please do me a huge favor and add your comments to the video, right? The title, as you said, as you could see, gig work currently sucks. Maybe you're making money and do share, right? If you're in Vegas or in LA making good money, do share. But if you have similar experiences such as Yona, Maurice, Destiny, and all of those I read out, please, I want you to share the truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God. God bless you all. Love you. Thank you.